Scary telling. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on my nightstand. Rubbing my eyes, I reached over to check it. It was a text message from my husband, but what it said made no sense. "I hope you burn in hell for what you've done, you bitch." I sat up, confused and scared. What had I done? Why was he saying this? I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent him a flurry of texts asking what was going on, but there was no response. Feeling uneasy, I decided to go to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I passed by the mirror in the hallway, I caught a glimpse of something behind me. Turning around, I saw nothing but my own reflection. I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched and continued on to the kitchen. That's when I noticed the kitchen window was open, even though I was sure I had closed it before going to bed. I felt a chill run down my spine. Had someone broken in? Was someone watching me? As I went to close the window, I saw something in the backyard. A figure, standing in the darkness. It was too dark to make out any details, but I knew it wasn't my husband. My heart started pounding in my chest, and I rushed to lock all the doors and windows. But that wasn't the end of it. That night, I heard strange noises coming from the attic. It sounded like someone was walking around up there, but I was too scared to investigate. The next day, I went to the police station to report the strange text message and the figure in my backyard. They promised to investigate, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. A few days went by without any new developments. I started to relax, thinking it was all in my head. But then, I received another text message from my husband's phone. "I'm coming for you." I tried calling him again, but it went straight to voicemail. I knew I had to get out of there. I packed a bag and drove to my sister's house, hoping to stay there until the police found out what was going on. That's when I got the call from the police. They had found my husband's body. He had been dead for a week. I couldn't believe it. How was that possible? I had just received a text message from him a few days ago. As I sat in my sister's living room, trying to process everything, my phone rang. It was my husband's number. My heart skipped a beat as I answered, but there was only silence on the other end. That's when I realized what was happening. My husband had come back from the dead, and he was after me. He had sent the text messages, opened the window, and was now calling me from beyond the grave. I knew I had to do something. I went back to my house and searched the attic, where I found a hidden room. Inside, I found my husband's body, still fresh, with a look of pure hatred on his face. It was then that I remembered my last wish. For my last wish, I had wished my dad to be alive again. I stood atop his grave and smiled, imagining him screaming and clawing at his coffin lid as he did the 2 previous times I wished him back. It was then that I realized the true horror of what I had done. My husband was back from the dead, but he wasn't the same. He was consumed with hatred and rage, and I had brought him back into this world. I knew there was only one way to stop him. I had to undo my wish and send him back to the grave. I closed my eyes and made the wish, imagining my dad sinking back into the ground, at peace. As soon as I opened my eyes, I felt a chill run down my spine. My husband's body was gone. I searched the hidden room, but there was no trace of him. I knew then that he was still out there, somewhere, waiting for me. For weeks, I lived in constant fear, never knowing when or where he would strike next. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think of anything else but him. I knew I had to do something before it was too late. I went to a psychic, hoping for some guidance. She told me that my husband's soul had been corrupted by the darkness, and that the only way to save myself was to confront him and offer him forgiveness. I didn't know if I was brave enough, but I knew I had to try. I went back to my house, and there he was, waiting for me in the shadows. I looked into his eyes, and I could see the rage and hatred burning inside of him. But I also saw something else, something I had missed before. Fear. I knew then that he was scared, just like me. Scared of being alone, scared of being forgotten, scared of the darkness that consumed him. I offered him forgiveness, and he disappeared into the night. I never saw him again after that, but I still feel his presence, lurking in the shadows. I know that one day, he might come back, but I'm ready for him. I've learned that the darkness doesn't have to consume us, that forgiveness and love can overcome even the most terrifying of horrors. I always thought the full body twitch was just a strange quirk of my body. It happened every so often, right as I was on the cusp of falling asleep. My limbs would jerk suddenly, like I was trying to jolt myself awake. But then, one night, something strange happened. I was lying in bed, exhausted after a long day of work, when the twitch hit me. But this time, it was different. I felt like I was being pulled under, like something was trying to drag me down into the darkness. And then, I saw it. A flash of light, and then a blur of movement. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and reached for my phone. That's when I saw it. A picture in my phone of me sleeping. I live alone. I didn't remember taking the picture, but there it was, clear as day. I sat there for a long time, staring at the picture and trying to make sense of it. Was someone in my apartment? Had they taken the picture while I was sleeping? I tried to brush it off, to convince myself that it was just a weird glitch in my phone. But then, the twitch happened again. And this time, I saw something even more terrifying. As my body jerked, I felt like I was being pulled out of myself. And then, I saw myself, sleeping peacefully in my bed. But there was something wrong. Something about the way I was sleeping was just off. My mouth was open, and my eyes were rolled back in my head. And then, I saw movement in the corner of the screen. A shadow, darting across the room. It was too fast to make out any details, but I could feel the malevolence radiating off of it. I tried to shake myself awake, to snap out of whatever nightmare I was trapped in. But the twitch kept happening, and every time it did, I saw more and more. I saw the shadow figure more clearly, now. It was humanoid, but twisted and distorted, like something out of a nightmare. And every time it appeared, it seemed to be getting closer to me, to the camera, to my sleeping body. I was terrified, but I couldn't look away. Every time the twitch hit me, I was transported back to that dark room, watching the horror unfold in front of me. And then, one night, something even worse happened. As the twitch hit me, I felt myself being pulled down into the darkness, but this time, there was no camera to capture what I saw. I was surrounded by darkness, and all I could hear was the sound of my own breathing. But then, I heard something else. A low, guttural growling, like something hungry and wild. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. And then, I felt something wrap around my ankle, pulling me down even further. I screamed, but no sound came out. I was trapped, alone in the darkness with whatever was hunting me. That's when I woke up, drenched in sweat and gasping for air. It was all just a nightmare, I told myself. Just a terrible, terrible nightmare. But as I reached for my phone, I saw that there was a new picture. It was blurry, out of focus, but I could make out the shape of something in the darkness. Something that shouldn't have been there. I tried to delete the picture, but it wouldn't go away. And every time I closed my eyes, I could feel the twitch coming on, pulling me back down into the darkness. I don't know what's happening to me, but I know that I'm not alone. And whatever is with me, it's getting closer. Every night, I can feel it watching me, waiting for the twitch to hit me so it can come closer, so it can consume me. I've tried everything to escape it. I've tried sleeping pills, meditation, even going to a therapist. But nothing works. The twitch keeps happening, and every time it does, I'm transported back to that dark room, trapped in a nightmare that I can't escape. I don't know how much longer I can take it. The fear is consuming me, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. But I can't give up. I have to keep fighting, to find a way to break free from whatever is haunting me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to sleep peacefully again. But I do know one thing, I'll never forget that strange, full-body twitch that started it all. Because that's when the nightmare began, and I don't think it's ever going to end. I've lost track of time. Days, weeks, months, they all blur together in this darkness. I was thrown into this room 10 years ago, with no explanation, no contact with the outside world, and no hope of escape. At first, I tried everything to get out. I screamed until my voice went hoarse, banged on the door until my fists bled, and searched every inch of the room for a hidden passage or key. But eventually, I gave up. There was no way out. And so, I resigned myself to this existence. I slept on the cold concrete floor, ate the meager rations that were occasionally slid under the door, and tried not to think about the life that I had lost. But then, one night, in a fit of desperation, I did something foolish. I whispered into the mirror the old childhood legend of Bloody Mary. I didn't believe in ghosts or in supernatural powers, but I was so lonely, so desperate for any kind of human interaction that I was willing to try anything. And then, something strange happened. The mirror started to glow, and I saw a face staring back at me. It wasn't my own reflection, though. It was a woman with long dark hair and bloodshot eyes. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet in my haste to get away from the mirror. But the woman didn't disappear. Instead, she started to move, to crawl out of the mirror and into the room with me. I screamed, but no sound came out. I tried to run, but my legs were like lead. And then, she was on me, her cold, clammy hands gripping my arms and pulling me towards her. I don't remember much of what happened after that. I blacked out, and when I woke up, the woman was gone. But I knew that she had been real. The scratches on my arms, the bruises on my legs, they were all too real. After that night, I avoided the mirror at all costs. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Sometimes, while I was sleeping, I would feel a cold breath on my face, or the sensation of someone whispering in my ear. And then, one day, the rations stopped coming. For days, I went without food or water, slowly wasting away in the darkness. I was delirious with hunger and thirst, barely able to move. And then, I saw her again. The woman from the mirror, standing in front of me with a glass of water in her hand. I tried to reach for it, but my arms wouldn't move. And then, she vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness once again. I knew that I was going to die down here. And as the days passed, and my body grew weaker, I started to see more and more things in the darkness. Shapes moving in the corners of my eyes, whispers in my ear that I couldn't quite make out, and the sensation of cold fingers on my skin. And then, one night, I saw something that terrified me more than anything else. A figure, shrouded in darkness, standing in front of the mirror. And as I watched, it started to crawl out of the mirror, just like the woman had done. But this figure was different. It was taller, and its eyes glowed with a malevolent light. It moved slowly, deliberately, towards me, and I knew that this was it. This was the end. I closed my eyes, ready for the darkness to consume me. But then, I heard a sound that I hadn't heard in years. The sound of a key turning in a lock. I always thought working the night shift alone would be peaceful. I imagined spending my nights reading, listening to music, and enjoying the silence. But that was before I started working at the old asylum. It was a massive building with winding hallways and countless rooms. The only part of the building that was still in use was the front desk and a few offices on the first floor. The rest of the asylum had been abandoned for years, and it showed. The paint was peeling, the floorboards creaked with every step, and there was a constant chill in the air. But I needed the job, and the pay was good, so I pushed through my fear and took the night shift. The first few nights were uneventful. I spent most of my time at the front desk, checking security cameras and making rounds every hour or so. But then, on my third night, something strange happened. I was checking the security cameras when I saw it. A face in the cellar, staring directly at the camera. It was hard to make out any details in the low light, but it was definitely a face. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light or reflection, but as I watched, the face didn't move. It just stared, unblinking, into the camera. I felt a shiver run down my spine, and I quickly switched to another camera. But the image stayed with me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, but then, the power went out. The backup generator kicked in, but it only powered the front desk and a few emergency lights. The rest of the building was plunged into darkness. I tried to stay calm and focus on my duties, but the face in the cellar kept popping into my mind. I made my rounds, checking the locks and the windows, but every time I passed the door to the cellar, I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to tell myself that it was just my fear getting the better of me, but then I heard footsteps. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but then I heard them again. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the direction of the cellar. I tried to convince myself that it was just a building settling or a stray animal, but the footsteps kept getting closer. I pulled out my flashlight and started walking towards the noise, heart racing. The closer I got, the louder the footsteps became, until they were right in front of me. I pointed my flashlight towards the source of the noise, and that's when I saw it. A figure, hunched over and shrouded in darkness, staring up at me with unseeing eyes. I froze, unsure of what to do. The figure just stood there, motionless, as if waiting for me to make a move. And then, it spoke. "Hello?" it whispered, in a voice that was both hoarse and soft. I wanted to run, to scream for help, but I was frozen in place. The figure continued to stare at me, and I could feel its eyes piercing through me. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished. The footsteps faded away, and the darkness returned. I stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But the face in the cellar was still there, staring at me from the security camera. And I knew that I wasn't alone. Not really. I had just moved into my new apartment on the 14th floor, excited to start my new life in the city. But that excitement quickly turned to fear when I saw the grinning face staring at me from beyond my bedroom window. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, every night, without fail, the face would appear, grinning with sinister delight. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. The face was always there, watching me. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. I tried to tell my friends and family about it, but they just looked at me with pity, like I was crazy. I even tried to call the police, but they didn't believe me either. Desperate for help, I turned to the internet, searching for anyone who had experienced something similar. That's when I stumbled upon a forum dedicated to urban legends and creepy stories. There, I found a thread about a grinning face that would appear outside people's windows at night. Most people on the forum dismissed it as just another urban legend, but a few claimed to have seen the face themselves. They warned me not to look directly at it, and to keep my blinds closed at all times. But it was too late. I had already made the mistake of looking directly at the face, and it seemed to have taken hold of me. I started to see it everywhere, not just outside my window, but in my dreams and even in reflections. I tried to stay awake at night, but exhaustion would always win. One night, I woke up to find the grinning face staring at me from the foot of my bed. I froze in terror as it slowly made its way closer, its twisted smile growing wider and wider. I don't know how long I was trapped in that nightmare, but when I finally woke up, I knew I had to do something. I packed my bags and left that apartment behind, hoping to never see the grinning face again. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I can still feel its presence, waiting for me to let my guard down. And I know that one day, it will come back for me, and there will be no escaping its twisted grin.